What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleashed, the weekly panel discussion show. No need to introduce these two gentlemen with me, but I will do it anyway because I like them that much. Of course, in the middle, we have the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Good to talk to you guys.
Absolutely. Every week, good time chatting with you, my man. And of course, the person who anchors this panel every week, he's got the facts, the stats, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, Mr. Jay Petcher. Jay, what's going on, brother?
You know, I'm feeling a little revitalized after this weekend because we only had one card to cover instead of 6, 8, 12, 14. Well, actually 1.5, but we'll get to that other event later. I'm sure we'll have a couple things. So I'm feeling pretty good. But you know who isn't feeling pretty good? The whole UFC Hawaiian contingent, which is my stat of the week, that there were 3 Hawaiians on UFC on ESPN 18, Rachel Ostovich, Martin Day, and Kai Kamaka III. They all lost by stoppage. So UFC Hawaii just maybe in 2024, guys.
All right. Keep hope alive. Well, let's give a little bit of love to Anthony Smith. He got a quick submission victory over Devin Clark in this weekend's main event at the Apex Center. So, fellas, the question I have for you is this. Did we learn anything new about Anthony Smith or Devin Clark in this headliner?
Yes. Or at least we were reminded of something. Anthony Smith going into this, it wasn't a no-win situation, but it was a difficult-to-win situation. Just beating Devin Clark was not enough to really hold his place in the light heavyweight division, either numerically probably or in the minds and hearts of fans. Smith had been plummeting down the rankings on the back of 2 pretty lopsided losses, but to fighters who were very, very good. Clark was his chance to say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still a top 10 quality guy. And just, to win a split decision in a really close fight or to have to pull out a submission at the end of a fight he was losing would not have been enough to hold his spot. I kind of hate there's levels to this cliche, but he did exactly what a contender in his prime is supposed to do to a promising up-and-coming contender. Just completely outclassed him at Devin Clark's supposed strengths. It was Smith who did the nice little outside trip and took the fight to the ground against the decorated wrestler. And then once they were on the ground, even though Clark is clearly a man of superhuman strength, Smith was never in trouble at any point. He had advantageous positions and was just a step ahead on the ground at every moment until, he finished it with the triangle. So, yeah, we were reminded that, hey, Anthony Smith actually is really good.
So Jay, I'll throw this one in your direction here. Does this give you any hope for the future prospects of Anthony Smith?
I think it does. I think this is a real y'all must have forgot moment, which is kind of appropriate given who fought this weekend. Anthony Smith is a guy that throttled Alexander Gustafsson a year and a half ago. 2 years ago, he did a lot of bad things to poor Volkan Ozdemir. He walked up to Shogun Rua and gave him the people's elbow. So this is a guy who is a top contender, and for him to be a minus 135 favorite and for Devin Clark to be almost even money, okay, respect to Devin Clark. But what have you done, not just for lately, but in general? His best career win maybe is Alonzo Menafield. So you have to look at the level of competition here and see that whenever Devin Clark faces a fringe top 10 potential type of threat, he gets just absolutely shellacked. Alex Nicholson, we love that guy. He is a real delight of a human being. Just one shot of him. Jan Blachowicz, Alexander Rakic, Ryan Spann, all legit guys that Devin Clark meets that threshold, and then he goes, oh boy, and he gets finished. And this is a guy who wins by decision and loses by stoppage. And it's kind of interesting that people seem to overlook Smith in this. There were people who were picking, and by people, I think our favorite Yanni the Greek on the UFC Oddcast, which whatever, fine, okay, fine. He was all in on him. Meanwhile, I had him as my own betting odds pick, and I had him as he was the lock. Yeah, Anthony Smith is a guy that he's not going to mess around. This is a guy with a 91% finish rate over killers. He's finished, I think, 8 of his last opponents, a whole bunch of headliners. This isn't some guy you can kind of take lightly. And I think Devin Smith maybe sort of hoped I can take this guy down and hold him down for 3 rounds and survive the elbows coming at me for another 2. Maybe Smith's cardio will wane like it did against Teixeira. No, Glover Teixeira was hitting him for 20 minutes consistently until he finally got the finish. Clark has to do more than that. And this was kind of one of those moments. And I think I did learn something about the community as a whole is so willing to just toss the guy aside and go, he's old news. I mean, this matchup didn't make sense to me to begin with. That Anthony Smith, such a top tier guy who's proved himself against some of the best in the division, faces the number 40 something light heavyweight. It felt like a mismatch, and it was.
In the defense of a lot of people who picked against Smith, because I was one of them, but it wasn't because I believe that he was inferior to Devin Clark from a skill perspective. I mean, this is someone who's had a rough 2020.
Yeah.
The Glover Teixeira fight, I mean, if I were part of his camp, I would be trying to get him to not fight for the rest of the year after that Teixeira fight, because that was one of the worst one-sided beatings we've had in recent memory. And normally a fight like that will change a fighter. They will not be the same. And to see him drop his decision against Alex Rakic, shortly afterward, kind of said, okay, well, this could be the start of a decline. So to face an athletic specimen like Devin Clark, who has a very clear path to victory as far as what he can do, it seemed like it seemed like a passing of the torch moment, if in a smaller regard, I would say. So that's why I thought that that Anthony Smith was not going to get his hand raised, but I'm happy to see that he did, and he has a lot of life left in him in the fight game. So light heavyweight top contender still, and that's very important.
Which I don't know if it's good or bad that he's a top contender. Anthony Smith is a top contender still. I don't know if this hurts the division, given his so dramatic losses and the fact that he could go on a fantastic run. He could get up there and smoke Paul Craig, and then he could smash up Jimmy Crute, just guys in the echelon of that he should be beating, and go on like a 5-fight win streak. He's still behind Rakic and Glover. Like, this is a guy who is clearly the number 5, number 6 guy, because the number 4, 3, 2, and 1 have all pounded him. So this is a weird predicament that he's in. But I'm glad. I mean, he's only 32.
And he's one of the guys that it doesn't help him, and he takes a step back if John Jones comes back.
Yes.
Because he already has a loss to him. So he's in a tough spot. And you mentioned names like Crute and Craig. That's the thing. Smith, even though he, showed the divide between himself and Clark, he can't really take a step forward. Everyone ahead of him in the division, he's either fought them already or they already have a dance partner. So we're talking still about people ranked beneath him for his next fight. Crute, Craig, Ankalaev, guys like that. So he's a gatekeeper to the top 10 right now, whether he likes it or not, and whether it's fair or not.
But that's still not the worst spot in the world to be in. If you were on what appeared to be a physical decline earlier in the year, and then you're kind of stuck at this top 10 spot, it's not so bad. Like a lot of worse things can happen in the fight business. All right, fellas, so let's move along to our swing or miss segment here. Miguel Baeza is a threat to the welterweight division after submitting Takashi Sato. You swinging or you missing, Ben?
I'm swinging, keeping in mind that we are talking about the most difficult division to break into the top 15 of. But having said that, I like him a lot better after this fight than I did after the Brown fight. I picked Sato in this fight. I understood why Baeza was a favorite, but after watching the Brown fight and seeing a very shop-worn Matt Brown, actually be able to touch up Baeza and, not have him in a lot of trouble, but definitely hit him, hurt him, I thought Sato, who's a hard hitter, straight puncher, good counter striker, I thought he'd be able to find Baeza's face at some point in the first 2 rounds and either win the rounds or finish the fight. That was not the case. Baeza completely outclassed him everywhere. So I'm super excited for his next fight, but he's won 3 straight in the UFC welterweight division. Get back to me when he's won 6 straight and we can talk about a top 10 opponent. So I'm swinging, but cautiously at this point.
I mean, if he gets on a nice 7-fight win streak, maybe he'll enter a shot at Chimaev. Jay, are you swinging or missing? Miguel Baeza is a top guy in the welterweight division on the rise.
I mean, I'm picking up what Duffy's putting down. I've said this multiple times before that this division of welterweight is the gnarliest division to be ranked in, and you can go on a crazy win streak and just barely poke your nose into the rankings. I mean, Jeff Neal pounded his way getting a UFC contract. He's won his last 5 fights, including Bilal Muhammad, which, by the way, that's his best win. I don't care what you say about kicking Mike Perry in the head or outslugging Nico Price. Beating Bilal Muhammad was probably his most impressive all-around performance, and he is ranked among the top 15 as he probably should be. I mean, you look at the other guys in the division, maybe there's some that you're not sure about. Anthony Pettis, you don't know where to put him, but he did spark Wonder Boy Thompson, who was a top guy. So you got that weird ebb and flow. But there's one guy in the rankings who I don't believe belongs there. I don't know if you guys know, if y'all must have forgot who that guy is, but 1-0 at welterweight against a lightweight making his debut, who's now 0-2 in the UFC, or a guy who's 3-0 with 3 finishes, including Matt Brown and Takashi Sato. I don't know who should be the top 15 guy. I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like there's something funny going on here. I'm liking what Baeza's putting down. I feel like he should fight a Muhammad type of guy. I feel like that is the next logical step. A top 15, top 20 guy for Baeza to really see where he stands, because Matt Brown can walk out there, he can elbow someone's face off, like, poor Diego Sanchez, and then he gets shellacked and his leg gets kicked off. But there is something I really, really like what Baeza does. It's that calf kick that people do. Sure, we've seen it and think of the commentators going, oh man, that calf kick, Ben Henderson, blah, blah, blah. Well, he does it well, he sticks to it, and he makes it very effective to keep guys off their game. So I think he has a really good style to beat a lot of tough guys in the division. But, let's see him fight some more tough guys in the division. Let's see him fight the Chimaevs of the world.
Well, I actually was talking to UFC welterweight Alex Morono a week or two ago, and I said, well, now that you've beat Reese McKee also, we'll see you at like number 14 in the rankings next week, right? And he kind of laughed. He's like, yeah, it doesn't work that way.
You know what, fellas, like I'm feeling what you guys are talking about here. Welterweight is a beast of a division to rise up in, and you can have 6-7 fight win streaks and still not be recognized for your true abilities. So I like what Baeza did Saturday a lot. I think he certainly is someone on the rise and someone to watch, but I'm gonna add a little bit of caution to that. I was not enthusiastic necessarily about the Matt Brown win the same way Ben was. I feel the exact same way. That fight was exciting to watch. Obviously, it's a big deal if you finish Matt Brown, but we're talking about a clearly shop-worn version of Brown. But to see him completely outclass a fellow highly touted prospect says a lot. Sato looked completely ineffective during that entire fight, and he was shut down in so many different ways. When he tried to adjust his game plan, he got shut down. And he tried to adjust again, and he got shut down. That is a very good sign that you have somebody really special in front of you. So my hopes are high, but cautiously, as I would anybody on the rise at 170. So, all right, fellas. Something to add, Ben?
Just last note on that. Much as like we may not be fans of the guy personally, it is going to do Baeza a lot of good to have Colby Covington as his main training partner.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
absolutely.
Like you couldn't do much better than that for like a relatively small team.
As long as A, he doesn't adopt any of Colby's persona, and 2, he stops speaking up on behalf of Colby. If you try and chime in and give your support over a known villain, it doesn't raise your stock. It doesn't humanize the guy who you'd be like, yeah, rah rah rah. Because
I'm only talking in terms of his development as a fighter.
Oh no, I know. I'm with you. I feel like that. I pray to all that is holy that he doesn't start dropping, I may be this, but I don't blah blah. You can hear the rhetoric, and I don't want it.
Right.
I don't want it.
Well, the thing is I doubt Miguel is going to adopt like Colby's identity simply because Colby needs to adopt a new identity himself right now. So when he searches and finds the persona that he's going to ride through the next presidential term, then maybe we can ask Baeza some questions about where he's headed as far as promotion is concerned.
Colby KGP Covington. Let's do it.
Still, and LeBron keeps leaving them on red. So anyway, let's move along here to the next question. Why does the UFC put unranked heavyweights so high on the main cards? Fellas, you're gonna have to speak about this one a lot more than me because I was entertained by the real fight over the weekend during this card. So I saw the matchup and said, yeah, I'm just going to put this screen on mute. I'm going to watch the circus, and I'm better for it. Fellas, why does the UFC keep doing this?
So Ant was busy watching two unranked heavyweights in their 40s, or is that 50s? Yeah, so even worse than Bellator. I do think it's a misconception that the UFC has that probably springs from one of Dana's misconceptions that heavyweights are what get the rubes in the door.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see the big guys go at it. And I don't think it's ever been true. I don't think the most casual fan at, the wings and boobs, wants to see two, obese walruses, wailing on each other, and gassing out after 4 minutes. I don't think that's what they want to see. I think they'd be better suited to put a couple of, bantamweights that are 2-0 in the UFC against each other and just let them go off like Beyblades. I think it's just something that harks back to what Dana thought was cool in 2002, honestly.
It's such a strange phenomenon, and it isn't just an anecdotal thing. This is the UFC that'll throw in Andrei Arlovski versus Tanner Boser as a co-main event. Now, okay, there was some difficulties putting the Glover Thiago Santos card together, but that was your co-main event, Arlovski versus Boser. And then another recent card, Greg Hardy, Maurice Green. Another one, Marcin Tybura, Ben Rothwell. Just all these not top 15 heavyweight. I don't want to call them rumbles because I feel like that's the kind of thing the UFC wants to, they almost want to say a heavyweight barn burner coming at you here on the main card. I don't understand it. I don't, because it doesn't make sense historically. It doesn't make sense statistically. It doesn't make sense from a lot of different angles other than two big lugs when it's almost the kind of sell anything can happen in this fight because it's two heavyweights. Their hands are the size of lunchboxes. So let's go and have a knockout. It feels to me almost like that, like a crowd filler, let's get the crowd pumped up because there was this really boring fight. We kind of see that the Evan Smith fight not be that great. Let's put a fight after it to get the crowd back into it. Put a smash 'em up derby, put two bulls together to let them wail away on each other until one falls down. But when they don't, you get Parker Porter versus Josh Parisian. Now it was a fight. It was in terms of action, in terms of strikes and strike totals, it's among the most it's ever happened in a 3-round heavyweight fight. But it didn't make me feel great afterwards watching it. It didn't make me feel like, man, these are two contenders. I can't wait to see them again. It made me think, wow, I was really on the side of Josh Parisian, and he ran out of gas in 4 minutes. And then that was the end of it, and Parker Porter teed off on him. Parker Porter, who walked up to Chris Daukaus and got punched in the face. So I don't see I don't understand card placement anymore with the UFC. I don't understand how ranked top 10 guys can be put on the undercard when whomever is dumped on a marquee or the featured fight of the night type of matchup. And this was this situation, even if it was supposed to be lower because of the fight that got scratched from it. At least Blades versus Lewis had more of an appeal than watch these two big guys run at each other until one falls down. But I don't know. I'm kind of over those big, meaningless heavyweight fights way up on the card.
I think it's kind of just another symptom of a larger problem with the UFC, and that's just outdated thinking. The same reason why you go to a UFC event and you only hear new metal, or Godsmack is the International Fight Week concert and stuff like that, because it's just outdated thinking. They are so far behind what's actually going on in the world. Like fighting in particular, mixed martial arts at the lighter weight classes has evolved tremendously, and in the heavyweight class, it's kind of devolved in a lot of ways. It's just not what it was. So I don't think that they are looking toward the present here, or looking toward the future, I should say. They're stuck in that mentality that only big people will attract your attention. But fellas, I actually want to pivot here from from our outline, because some news that I think is much more important just broke, courtesy of our friend John Morgan at MMA Junkie. Olympic gold medalist boxer Claressa Shields has signed with PFL. Yeah, exactly. Kind of. I don't know if you saw my facial expression change while you guys were talking, but I just happened across that on the timeline and thought we should take a moment or two to discuss. So obviously this is very, very fresh off the presses. So at least according to the article I'm looking at MMA Junkie, obviously we're not privy to a lot of the details. We don't know exactly what's going on. I mean, PFL hasn't even announced when exactly they're going to be starting back up.
Yes, they did. We do have those. We do have the first 6 dates. I do have those. I put those in the
okay. All right, cool. So yeah. So PFL is starting. What's the date that they're coming back?
Un momento, por favor.
Okay.
April, I think it's 3 weeks in April, 3 in June, or something like that. I'll pull up the exact dates in a second.
All right. Well, but that's a good enough time frame to think about. So springtime, PFL will be back with Claressa Shields on the roster. So when you're asking why PFL is not too keen about signing Anderson Silva, why PFL has kind of made some of the moves that they've made, well, this kind of explains a lot. I can't imagine Claressa Shields came at a cheap price. So, gentlemen, just your first reactions to this news.
They're going to make her fight Kayla Harrison. That's my first expression. There are no other women's divisions in the PFL right now. So this means within, I know Duffy's just chomping at the bit right here. Within 3, this is just playing the theoretical game. At the best case scenario for Claressa Shields, she's 3-0 as a professional MMA fighter and has to fight Kayla Harrison in the finals. That's the best case scenario they can have.
Well, what I'm seeing right here says that she's only going to take one-off fights, and she won't be part of the tournament structure for the 2021 season.
So the PFL was very clear. Just I know this is all brand spanking new to us. The PFL was very clear not to have one-off fights or events other than maybe 1 or 2 to try and fill a card up, and didn't have any events in 2020 because they weren't interested in having one-off fights. But they signed a high expense free agent, not even free agent, newcomer to one-off fights during the tournament, fighting alongside of women that are in the tournament. How is this? Am I missing something here? This sounds crazy. The PFL is going to have to shell in and bring in Muriel Chernesky again to fight Muriel Chernesky, who is a women's lightweight in PFL, who's like 3-6 or so right now, to have her fight Claressa Shields. But that means they'll let her keep boxing then, if that's the case. And I don't why? Duffy, why?
Well, I mean, you already preempted a lot of what I was going to say. First thing I'll say is I'm excited to see it. I'm always excited when a legitimate top level professional from another combat sport, in or near their physical prime, wants to cross over to MMA. I am all about that. Yeah. And it actually works to everybody's benefit that she's got 5 months to learn to wrestle. But if they did put her in a tournament, there's no guarantee, she'd make it up the other side of the bracket. Like you telling me that
Sarah Kaufman would.
Sarah Kaufman carrying what she herself referred to as all this jelly couldn't take down Claressa Shields and like arm triangle her, like her words, not mine. Like, but like she almost has to take one-off fights because even as bad as women's lightweight is, and women's lightweight is men's super heavyweight.
Yes.
Like the ones that are really that good can get below 265 or 145 respectively. And even there, the division's kind of a shit show. Like but even those women could conceivably, tip over a barely trained Claressa Shields and upset PFL's, I presumably 6-figure deal for her. It has to be one-off fights, and the first fight or two will have to be very, very carefully managed. But I'm excited to see it. I don't want to see Claressa Shields go out and get embarrassed by a journeyman. I want to see her crush overmatched people and see if her game can develop incrementally. If PFL's really invested in trying to make interesting fights for Kayla Harrison at lightweight, they're going to have to build those fighters themselves because that fighter does not exist in the world of combat sports right now. So start with the best raw materials you can, Claressa Shields, and see what you can do. I like it.
I'll be very surprised if they don't match her up first against another former boxer. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Someone who crossed over from boxing and wasn't necessarily the most successful at it. And somebody whose mentality walking in there is going to be, oh, I can stand with her. That I think is the key to matching her up, at least for the first two fights. It's going to be a former kickboxer or a former boxer that's going to seriously believe that they have a chance standing in front of her and get iced. That's what they need. So
Heather Hardy with rocks in her pockets.
Yeah, Heather Hardy after eating at Burger King or something and standing on a ladder.
I mean, I don't know if Hardy is still signed with Bellator. That might actually not be a crazy thing to mess around with.
Oh man, they got to start paying us for this good shit. So,
just to clarify though, this is kind of related to PFL situations. PFL has allowed a couple fighters, Muhammad Usman, who fought in Titan, Kamaru Usman's big brother, very large man, and Kayla Harrison fought for Invicta, and she fought recently, and she demolished Courtney King. But there was something kind of sketchy about it, that after the fight was over, Invicta, yay, thank you for taking the fight, yay, we'd like to see you back again. And it came out that Ali Abdelaziz, Kayla Harrison's manager, paid Courtney King additional money to take the fight, an additional $5,000. This is straight on. This is public information. There's nothing I'm making up. That he paid her an additional $5,000, Courtney King, to take the fight, which was the claim. And the next fight that is arranged for Kayla Harrison, whomever it is, whatever organization it is, because PFL has allowed her to take one more fight outside before this happens, Kayla's opponent will be paid in part by Ali Abdelaziz. How in any universe is that? I don't know if it's legal or not. I don't know if we can go there, but it is exceptionally unethical.
I thought the commissions would not allow that.
Seems pretty cut and dry that they're. I mean,
legally.
Best case scenario, Ali's saying, we're really grateful you took this fight, and everybody said no. Here's an extra check. Thank you for doing business. That's the best case. But you can think of 1,000 other reasons why this is a horrible, horrible idea. Yes, that is exactly. Back up a little bit, Duffy. Yep. I mean, I can't fathom how a commission could be okay with a fighter's manager paying the other fighter after the fight.
I mean, unless it's like she had to sign over a portion of her purse,
and he's making it up. No, it's
see that
no, this is no.
Either way, this sounds terrible.
Yeah,
terrible. At least filter through a shell company.
Well, yeah, and this is something I believe Ali actually said or posted. So this isn't a thing they kept secret either. This was we paid Courtney King an extra $5,000 to fight Kayla Harrison. Jeez. Dude, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a leap to go. Wait a second. You're paying her extra money taken down and beaten up.
Well, and, you know, the second thought that pops in my head after it, wow, that sounds really unethical and perhaps illegal. The second thought is only $5,000 after what she
she got a big nasty cut right here too. Courtney King did.
Wearing that for life for $5,000, man. You better add an extra 0 or 2 in front of that.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but yeah, World Series of Fighting never die, boys.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you gotta adjust that comma, you know, at least 1 over to even entertain the conversation of permanent disfigurement.
That was
that was a big cut.
Wow, that was not a cut worth $5,000. I'll tell you that much. All right, so fellas, let's move on. We have to do our Eating Crow segment. Now, this is where I'm sure there's a lot to lot of crow to be had on this topic right here. Between the UFC card, and anything else that combat sports wise that came across your eyes, what has you seasoning up some good old fashioned deep fried crow?
I think I want to jump on the grenade first because I'm very disappointed. And I touched on it earlier when we talked about big lumbering heavyweights. You know, Duffy and I had both spoken highly about Josh Parisian based on his performances on the Contender Series. I mean, even though he got ground out by a big Michelle Batista wrestler on the show, but otherwise he had been smashing faces off on the regional scene. It was something like his last 10 fights hadn't gone the distance, and he was on like a 6-fight knockout streak and something like that. The competition was not always stellar. And Josh Parisian's last Contender Series foe, he did outweigh by about 54.5 pounds, I think. So this was a massive difference. But I had seen Parker Porter fight in the UFC. I had seen him. I had seen him set foot in the octagon, and I had seen him try to fight. And this is no. I've watched him on CES before. I mean, this is a guy who I've seen rising up the regional scene. I saw him in Bellator back before then. You know, he just seemed like one of those regional guys. And then he got the shot and he, on the pay-per-view of all places to fight Chris Daukaus, and he got kneed in the face. And I went, yeah, that's probably about what happens when he fights a top-level guy. And Josh Parisian, by all regards, had shown me that. The only guys to beat him that I can think of were big, gigantic 270-pound, 280-pound Brett Martin. He actually missed weight at heavyweight, Brett Martin, and did a big man Kimura on him. Okay, I can see that happening because he just walks up to him, falls down because he's the bigger man, and pulls his arm off in a minute. Okay, I can see that. And Tony Lopez occasionally wins fights, whether we like him or not, and he took him down and he pounded him out. So, okay, you can see weakness in wrestling for Josh Parisian against maybe a good guy. Parker Porter ain't that guy. He is in the phone booth. I'm going to stand here. You're going to stand there. We're going to hit each other in the mouth. My hands are going to be down. So you can hit me as hard as you want. I'm going to hit you back. That's his strategy. And it's worked for him to get a 9-6 record up to that point. And Josh Parisian looked good until he couldn't swing his fists much anymore. And God bless him. He was trying. He was fighting to the bitter end. But this was a very difficult performance in a guy who seems to have been trying to get to the big stage for so long and only to not get there. Like, this is a guy who had a 90-second knockout of Greg Ribs Rebello on Contender Series, and I'm like, oh my God, a heavyweight spinning back fist. I haven't seen one of those since Biff and McGee, but he didn't get the shot. Okay, he fought a million times, and he finally made it, and that's what we got. And for a guy who I expected, I believe in the last show, I said we could maybe see him in the top 15 one day. I don't think we're going to see him that much higher, but he could beat some guys and get up there. This ain't it, Josh Parisian. This ain't it. Try again. Maybe you can fight. Ooh, boy, I don't know. Justin Tafa, Jorgen De Castro. I don't think he's still around. The problem with losing to Parker Porter in that way, so there aren't many guys to fight below him. You know, there's not the guy who Parker Porter beat beforehand. So we go, oh, the guys who beat. No, there's nobody like that. There's, you know, Yao Zhan Hu. I don't think he's still in the UFC. The Chinese heavyweight guy, I think he's gone too. Rashad Coulter was supposed to box. So, I mean, Chase Sherman, Ike Villanueva, dude, I don't know. Doesn't look good. So, yeah, I'm eating all the crow for Josh Parisian.
Ben, what has you eat crow this week?
Well, I mean, that would have been my first choice as well. But I also picked Spike Carlyle to beat Bill Algeo this week. I mean, at this point, the book is kind of out on Carlyle. You know, he comes out like a house on fire. He wins in the early going, and then he gasses out in an outlandishly short amount of time for a featherweight. And then we get to see whether he can hold on to win. In his last fight against Billy Quarantillo, that's exactly how it played out. And even though Quarantillo actually won the decision in that one, I thought Carlyle had done enough to win the fight. And I expected it to play out similarly against Bill Algeo. The general dynamic played out the same, but even less favorably so for Carlyle. He gassed out even quicker, and Algeo seemed to be figuring him out even before his cardio hit the wall. The UFC booth said something pretty obvious yet insightful about Carlyle, in that if you don't have 3-round cardio, then we're never gonna see you in 5-round fights. That pretty much says it. I'm down on Carlyle in a way that I was not after his last fight, and it's a shame because stardom is there for the taking. He has a wildly exciting fight style. He has a distinctive look. He has that kind of bizarre, manic Diego Sanchez, energy to his personality. All the guy needs to do is win some fights, but that's not coming. The featherweight division is not kind to people who gas out in the round, and the top 25 is jammed with people that his rabid honey badger routine is not going to phase. It's not going to work on. I mean, it didn't work on Bill Algeo, who was in his second UFC fight. So Carlisle's got to figure something out, because I'm eating crow on this one, but I will not be eating crow on Spike Carlisle's behalf again.
All right, fellas. So my eating crow, I was going to originally discuss my my thoughts on Anthony Smith and why I picked against him this past weekend, but I already kind of went into that. So instead, I'll use this to roll into our next segment here. My eating crow this week will be courtesy of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. I thought that Tyson would go out there and spark Roy Jones simply because his style does not translate very well to age. And, the training footage we saw didn't look particularly impressive as well, but I was wrong. So, fellas, I'm going to get to your opinions on this fight in particular. How did you score the Tyson-Jones exhibition sparring thing?
I didn't score it because the WEC specifically said we're not allowed to score it, and therefore I'll be outside of my bounds to do it. Man, I had to cover the UFC card, so I didn't get to really enjoy it live. But going back, how could you not? Oh, I mean, if there's no judges, there can be no scores, and therefore there can be no winner unless there's a knockout, even though the CSAC prohibits knockouts from happening. So how would you not give it to Tyson? I think maybe 7-1. Maybe Jones had 2 rounds out of it. It didn't seem like, it was competitive enough. It was entertaining enough, but it wasn't entertaining enough to where I want to go, boy, I'd love to see that again. I can't wait to see Mike Tyson fight next. And that was the issue that I think is the biggest takeaway that I had from this event, is that I'm not going, man, I can't wait to see the rematch, or good Lord, I can't wait for Mike Tyson to fight Evander Holyfield again. Nah. That's what we're probably going to get, by the way, because I'm gauging this pay-per-view was wildly successful for a $50 offering, that we're probably going to see Tyson Holyfield again and Roy Jones Jr. and Anderson Silva. Maybe the same card. That'd be kind of fun.
I'd
I almost shut my mouth for a second. Hold on.
I would definitely pay $50 for that. But I don't think we'll see the Jones rematch because Jones didn't seem too enthusiastic about jumping back in there with Tyson.
Tyson said, let's do it again. He's like, I hurt everywhere.
Yeah, he wasn't too pumped about that idea. I'll say overall, I thought Tyson should have won, but it was also not the fight to score. It was not something that I'm breaking out a notepad and writing 10s and 9s on. I just came to see a spectacle, and that's exactly what we got. And to have a full-on rap concert between every fight. I felt really old not knowing who St. John is. I still don't know who he is. I guess it was some song that he did that I should recognize from the radio. I don't listen to the radio. I just have my Spotify playlist and that's it. So, whatever. And Nate Robinson got killed. So that was that happened.
Yep.
Ben, any thoughts you had on the Tyson-Jones card?
No, I mean, for one thing, I did not watch the fight start to finish. All I've seen is highlights and GIFs. But the Robinson knockout did let us know that at least this far into the new presidency, Colby Covington has not changed his shtick because he used that as an opportunity to sound off. Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, I didn't score anything, but yeah, it looks like Tyson won that. Yeah. I mean, that's all I really have to say. I don't have that much interest in it. Like, even if there were not a UFC on the same night that I was having to watch, I don't think I would have shelled out $50 for it. Just not that interested.
So I guess I know since you guys didn't watch the whole thing, so I can't ask you who you thought gave the best rap performance.
No.
Okay.
No, there was a very liberal amount of fast forwarding done on my broadcast to skip through there. Thank you, Fight TV. Man, let me tell you what. I almost wish that this show had drops so I could have dropped in. This was supposed to be an exhibition because then you got something to work with. But man, we're gonna do this again, and that's almost distressing to me that the California State Athletic Commission will say, I saw enough from these two guys to let them fight again. They're only getting older and more tired and brittle, and head trauma that they already had is going to be accelerating. Let's let them fight 4 more times.
Yeah. But I mean, even if California won't, Texas, anything goes. So.
Texas, anything goes.
Yeah. So Ben, we'll see you ringside.
Yep. I'll be there.
I'll fly down. Well, maybe not. Apparently, it's so weird.
All right, fellas. So let's move on to the greatest title segment in all of media. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share something from the combat sports world that surprised us or ironically did not. So I'll start this one off today simply because we're going to stick with the Tyson-Jones theme. I'm very surprised how good the commentary was for the Tyson-Jones card. It was very entertaining. They had some last minute shakeups. I can't remember who was originally supposed to do play-by-play.
Al Bernstein.
Okay, yeah, and he dropped out the day of.
He got COVID.
He got COVID. That's what. Oh wow. So yeah. So he was out of commission. Then Mauro Ranallo, who the greatest combat sports commentator of all time, he stepped in and did a fantastic job, kept all of his puns, all of his one-liners and everything. He just made them up on the fly. It was beautiful stuff. Israel Adesanya was nothing but class and genius upon the microphone. Even sounded classy even as he was cursing, which I love the cursing coming from the commentary booth. That shit made me really fucking happy. So that was pretty cool. And the biggest surprise was Snoop.
Oh no Snoopcast.
It was like if Snoop actually tried for the Snoopcast, it would have been that. Like it was entertaining. Granted, maybe if he did it week after week, we would grow tired of it, like we did with the Contender Series. But in the Contender Series, it didn't sound like he tried. It didn't sound like he put any effort into it, any prep whatsoever. He at least probably had more genuine enthusiasm for the names involved, so he had some knowledge to lean on to share. And of course, he did it with his signature personality. And as we can come to expect from one of the greatest boxers of our time, Sugar Ray Leonard, he was total trash on the mic, as always. Don't disappoint Sugar Ray. He's just got this OG wisdom voice, and he doesn't say anything with it, so it makes everything he say sounds so much more disappointing. It's like I on Twitter, I likened it to Morgan Freeman reciting Soulja Boy lyrics. So,
pretty good.
What Sugar Ray Leonard sounds like on commentary to me, but I was pleasantly surprised even by how bad Sugar Ray Leonard was. It was overall made it a more enjoyable and entertaining experience. So Ben, I'm going to pass the baton to you. What is your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment?
Well, I mean, we've talked about a couple things that surprised me already, but I will go in on Gina Mazany against Rachel Ostovich on Saturday. I've always kind of loudly espoused the idea that dropping in weight, especially after age 30, is completely overrated as a way for an MMA fighter to revamp their career. You know, for every example you get of like a Damian Maia or Frankie Edgar, where it turned out to be a good idea in hindsight, there are 10, BJ Penns or Josh Berkmans, where it was just kind of a desperation move and only made things worse. Mazany had all the look of someone for whom this might be a good idea, because despite what came out of the UFC booth on Saturday, her problem at 135 was that she clearly had a game that operated on being the physically stronger woman, and just too often she wasn't at 135. And fairly small framed for a bantamweight, so she had the look of someone who, if she can make the weight cut, she might actually get a new lease on life in a new weight class. She was taking on Rachel Ostovich, somebody that, this isn't meant to be insulting, but just simply hasn't proven to be UFC material. So Mazany expected to win. The real test was really how good she looked compared to Gina Mazany, not compared to Rachel Ostovich. And she appeared to have made weight without particularly prostrating herself with dehydration. She looked physically good, no apparent issues with her chin, no apparent issues with her gas tank. And sure enough, I mean, she looked like the second coming of Rustam Havilov out there, just slamming Ostovich all over the place for 3 rounds. So she's going to run into much sterner opposition very, very quickly in the flyweight division, as in probably in her next fight. It'll be tough for them to find someone for her in her next fight that she won't be an underdog to, but I'm excited to see it. Whereas I thought she'd kind of reached the end of the road at bantamweight. So for once, I am surprised, Mr. Falcons, that somebody dropped in weight and it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Good one, Ben. Jay, what is your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment?
So I have a bantamweight story, but it has nothing to do with the UFC, but it does now, I guess. The UFC decided presumably out of nowhere, to sign Davison Figueiredo, the UFC flyweight champion, his brother, Francisco Nazareno Figueiredo Jr. I believe his nickname is Sniper. He fights in Brazil. He fights in Jungle Fight, Walid Asmail's promotion. He was the champ over there. Okay, cool, whatever, fine. Hasn't fought in a long time, like over a year. That's a long time. Even, COVID era, all that stuff. There's still events to happen and go to. So he's been away a while. And yet the UFC suddenly decided to sign this kid. And I say kid, he's 31. I mean, I think he's a year younger than the champion. I can't say that off the top of my head, but still, the point is he is an interesting fighter. He prefers to submit more than run and smash your face off. Like, he's not going to be quite as a brute force as his smaller yet bigger brother. And I'm curious to see what he can do at bantamweight, because the division is already so stacked, and he's a 135er, so he won't go down to deal with that situation. But we have another pair of brothers, one's a champion, another pair of siblings, where there's a champion with the potential to run into each other. I'm also surprised that the UFC signed him off a draw, because usually you'd expect for the UFC to go, we see a performance and we really like it. It's a guy that hasn't won since 2018. So where did the signing come from, other than, oh yeah, Figueiredo is so hot right now, let's get another one? So that's kind of what it seemed like to me. So hey, maybe this kid could be a stud. Haven't seen him really fight much competition. I saw him get his block knocked off by John Lineker, but that was a long time ago. It was one of the only fights I've actually really seen in full of his. And, okay, cool. Figueiredo brothers, let's do it. Let's get weird.
Francisco is 31, and Davison turns 33 in just a couple days. So they're actually almost 2 years apart. Yeah, they're almost 2 years apart.
Yeah. Oh, and he looks just like him, except for without the blonde hair. But that I guess that goes without saying. But no, he looks just like him. It's pretty entertaining.
Maybe they'll do what the Pitbull brothers did. Just when you finally could distinguish one from the other, then they go and get the same mustache. So, so we'll see. We'll see Francisco with the blonde streak, I'm sure too. All right, fellas. So let's move on a little bit here. Now, we've had 3 of the last 4 UFC cards, the main events get destroyed because of COVID-19. So we lost Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis the day of weigh-ins, I believe, or was it the day of the fight? It was weigh-ins.
It was weigh-in day. Yeah, it was Friday.
Yeah, right before the weigh-ins.
So yeah, and then there was the rumors that Chimaev had COVID, but it looks like that was false. But anyway, I mean, obviously this is a huge deal now with the rest of the world kind of heading back toward some variation of lockdowns and quarantines. So with this in mind, and the UFC cards getting decimated as a result, do you think the promotion should at least have a contingency plan for their main events moving forward?
I feel super weird that we have to have this conversation again. And it is a legitimate, full-on, real good to have conversation that we had in March because things got stupid. And here we are, December is about to start, and we're circling the drain once again. Now, I saw the Chimaev news from Kimura, Sweden, and I guess it's since then been debunked, or at least partially debunked, so it makes you wonder where it came from. But it was a stark reminder that we're going to lose a lot of these fights due to COVID reasons, because even if it isn't the fighters themselves, the corners, the training, the family, whomever is going to get sick because Americans are doing nothing basically to stop the spread of COVID. I mean, there are some goofballs who are going to be mad at us in the comment section. Masks don't work. You're just spouting propaganda. No, man, where people are getting sick. Cody Garbrandt has been sick since what, April? I forget when he got it, but he is still dealing with symptoms. This is a guy who's in better shape than all of us by a long shot, and he is still dealing with post-COVID pneumonia months and months and months later. So this is a real issue here. And Lev Pisarski for Sherdog wrote a really good piece that I've been kind of in that mindset lately, in that the UFC is stacking the cards too loosely. They'll have a big enough fight, like a boxing model, and then they'll have passable co-main event, and then the rest of the card is stuff from a contender series, stuff from the LFA, stuff from, oh boy, that's a prelim fight, but why is it on the main card? So I am a firm belief that every card should at least have 2 main event fights on it. Just period, the end. There are 170 or so ranked fighters in the UFC right now. I think available or in the top 10 or something like that. I forget the numbers off the top of my head now, but there's a lot of ranked fighters that are available, even the ones that aren't sick. The UFC should prepare for this. It's not even a possibility anymore. It's almost an inevitability at this point. So I think the UFC needs to stop doing these Blades Lewis cards that end up getting with Smith Clark as the main event, or there aren't going to be people watching. And they want people to watch, and that's not how you get viewers.
Well, I think this is more of a symptom of guaranteed money.
Yeah.
They're just trying to put bodies,
pumping out cards.
Yeah, and that's the main objective here. Just throw bodies, and once all this is over with, then they can try to go back to regular matchmaking and whatnot. Now they're just trying to throw something at the wall and see what sticks. So I don't think they should necessarily, at least if we're talking about their business interests, I don't think they should have a contingency plan. One, because where you're kind of maxing out the level, the amount of fighters that you have access to anyway. They've got the government of the United Arab Emirates to create a fictitious island for them.
Yep.
To section off from the world. So you've got as and the Apex Center runs as its own venue and production studio and everything else. So you've kind of got your contingency plans in place already. The only problem is there aren't but so many elite level mixed martial artists in the world that they can put under contract, and that can make the fight date with a deadly pandemic crossing around the globe. So they simply just want to have a certain number of fights on the card to get a check from ESPN. That is all this is about. And as long as they fulfill that duty, there is no contingency plan, because the money is all they're after in the first place.
It seems so short-sighted. Like, there was a reason, and I want to step on Duffy here. There was a reason that the UFC, this is the UFC thing, signed more fighters this season on the Contender Series than any by a crazy wide margin. Like, it's not even close. Like, there were the first season of the Contender Series, season 1 back in 2017. There was, I don't think, more than one show gave away more than 2 contracts. And here we are right now, where it's just, you know, you're just kind of spreading them out like this, and this is why, for better or worse.
Yeah, that's what they got. Ben, what do you have to add about this?
Really kind of on the same page as both of you. I don't know how much they could do to adjust their model if they have to put out, you know, basic cable cards every single weekend. They definitely should have learned their lesson by now that their pay-per-view cards cannot be one fight cards.
Yeah.
Like, unless you want to have to scrap things completely, like your pay-per-views have to have more to them than that. But aside from that, this is really just the show must go on at all costs. Like, literally at all costs. You know, we knew in March how many cards they had to get out the door before the end of the year to meet the terms of their deal with ESPN. And we were like, well, come hell or high water, they're clearly going to do this, as they laid out these incredibly ambitious schedules. And for most of the summer and fall, it worked out better than expected. But as COVID has, you know, surged back up, the UFC is not in a bubble, regardless of what they say about the precautions. It is affecting the fighters. It's affecting the fighters' camps. Like, you can't quarantine these people from the people that they live with and train in their daily lives. Like, the web grows from 600 fighters to tens of thousands of people very, very quickly in a way that you cannot cleanly extricate and have them still able to train and travel and perform. So the UFC is going to feel the sting, and I think their best case scenario is that it doesn't end up completely scotching a pay-per-view.
And it's kind of odd to me because the UFC still does have the ability to stack cards. Look at December 19th, their year-end fight night. It's not a pay-per-view, it's a fight night card. There are 4 headliner-capable fights on that card, straight up. Edward Shemaev, whether we want it to or not, that's headlining. So there we go. There's one. Wonderboy Thompson, Jeff Neal. I'd argue that's another. Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font. Yes. Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera. Yes. All 4 of those are headliner fights that would be theoretically, I love you, Anthony Smith and Devin Clark, better fights than Smith versus Clark. So the UFC has the ability to put these cards and spread the wealth around in a way that benefits every event, but choose not to. That's the issue I take with it, is that it is short-sighted to the degree that the UFC is front-loading certain events when they don't need to. And then they're letting pay-per-views go on with Figueiredo, Perez, and Shevchenko versus Maia, which we know in the even in the desperate for pay-per-view era, that could break 150,000 buys. So this is a situation the UFC is not managing well, I don't think.
But, you know, I think they haven't managed their cards well for a long time now. So
you're lying.
Level of stress on the world, and I don't expect them to outperform what they've been doing under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
And then also too, I think we have to keep in mind that, you know, just Saturday night, I believe it was, after the event, Dana White is talking about how, you know, how everybody's going to get COVID, and it's not, and really downplaying it again.
Oh my God, he did.
The same person who was on, you know, who's on the mic just singing the praises of Khabib Nurmagomedov's father after he passed. But COVID isn't that big of a deal. So, like, when you have the leadership with that mentality, you can't expect the promotion to handle things properly in this scenario beyond a certain limit. Like, the leadership says one thing that's totally devoid of what reality is. So I honestly don't think we're going to see normal matchmaking, normal cards, normal schedules or anything, and normal like dropout rates for fights until this pandemic is, you know, quelled down or vaccine is proven to be safe and mass distributed. But that's really the only solution to this. The fight world is going to be in the same level of chaos that the rest of the world is in, and there's no way around it. So contingency plan or not, they've got some serious shuffling to do of their schedule as a result.
An International Fight Week is coming in January, and there are going to be 3 events in the span of a week. So we're just jamming it right down our throats.
Yay. So, with that being said, we're going to move on to the speed bag here. So I'm going to put 10 seconds on the clock. I'm going to give you guys that amount of time to answer these 3 questions. So, Ben, I'm going to begin with you. If Tyson versus Jones was a name your price pay-per-view, how much would you have paid to watch it?
It was more a question of time than of price for me. If there's nothing else going on that weekend, maybe $20.
See, we didn't sign up for that philosophical bullshit. Jay?
See, I'd throw a 20 spot at it because otherwise I'd have to do the TJ DeSantis. How many dollars would you pay for a fight? And it's 20 for that one for the main event and nothing for the rest.
All right. I like Jay's answer more than Ben's right there. I just feel like picking on you, Ben. Anyway, please don't beat me up. Jay, you're going to begin this one. After all 3 Hawaiians lost on the Smith versus Clark,
I see what you're doing.
Are hopes of a Hawaiian UFC show even more distant now?
I don't understand why the UFC has not yet been to Hawaii. There are venues, there's abilities to do it, but we're not going to see Hawaii until like 2024. I'm not kidding.
Ben?
I don't see why, with the resurgence of Gina Mazany, we aren't asking for Alaska cards. I want Alaska. Give me Jared Cannonier. Give me Gina Mazany, Lauren Murphy. Bring back Cody McKenzie. Like, give me UFC Alaska 2021.
Sam Hogar?
Yeah, Sam Hogar lives here in Houston.
Oh, I thought he lived in
Alaska. Alaska. He's from Alaska.
Okay.
Lives in Houston, but Alaska can have him back.
I was the only.
He might be stealing some of my clothes right now.
That might come too.
I let that go on, Ben, and I'll let you disrespect the clock because I wanted to hear if you were going to mention Cody McKenzie.
Yeah, I was waiting to see how many Alaskans we'd get out of here.
Better not leave out Cody. All right, so let's move along here to the last question. Ben, you will have this one to start. The UFC is planning its International Fight Week in January in Abu Dhabi. Do you think this is a good idea?
No, it's a terrible idea, but it would be a worse idea to have it in Vegas. So I guess I'll take the lesser of 2 evils.
All right, and Jay. Well, I'm glad that we're touching on topics that we covered earlier. This is kind of good. No, it's not a good idea.
Oh, you're really building me up. Thought you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I wanted to, but
all right. So now I'm changing the clock to 30 seconds. I'll give myself that time to answer all 3 questions in succession. The clock will begin after reading the first question. So, if Tyson versus Jones was a name your price pay-per-view, how much would you have paid to watch it? $30, I guess. Is kind of where I draw the line. I mean, yeah, I'm a fiend and I'm a fool, but I'm not that stupid. Well, maybe I am. After all 3 Hawaiians lost on the card, do we think we'll see a UFC Hawaii? Yeah, we will. When there's no Hawaiians on the card, they're gonna have like a brother from Memphis, and they're gonna have somebody from Argentina. All right. And the UFC planning International Fight Week in Abu Dhabi in January is a horrible idea. January. Good Lord.
It sounds like, and this at
the top.
This is still early, but it sounds like there will be other humans that will be attending this event besides people that are fighting those 3 events. There will be people in attendance. There will be people coming in and doing that whole thing, that bringing COVID with them. It just, I don't see how the UFC and the Abu Dhabi department or whomever can manage this in a month.
The real question is James Krause invited back?
Oh, only if he fights Joaquin Buckley 3 times over each event.
No, I prefer James Krause to stay away from Abu Dhabi. Stay far, far away. You may not make it back, my friend. All right. Now let's move along here because I thought that the UFC was going to be off this weekend, but I guess
no.
I guess I don't know when they're off. When
after the 19th. So
after the 19th, the night. Okay. Because I definitely made some plans with my wife for Saturday because I thought it would be off. But oh well, I'll just miss it and not watch it live. So we have Jack Hermansson and Marvin Vettori as the headliner this weekend. Do you like this matchup over Kevin Holland because he did test positive for COVID and was pulled? Is this new incarnation a little bit better for you, gentlemen?
I don't like it better, but it is a hell of a replacement. Like, I was really looking forward to Hermansson versus Holland. I thought it was an interesting matchup of strengths versus weaknesses. Like Holland's power versus Hermansson's chin. Hermansson's just kind of grappling and really extreme fight IQ versus, Holland's sometimes inconsistency in that regard. I loved that fight. I love this one too. I like this one a lot. It's tough for people outside the top 15 to get a top 15 name. Vettori has deserved one for a while. I still think Vettori has given Israel Adesanya a tougher time than anybody else he's fought in his entire career. I doubt he thinks of moral victories. There's not much stock to be placed in them, but he showed his quality that night. He's deserved a top 10, top 15 opponent for a while. I like this.
I kind of feel odd about this fight card, not just because this is the first Italian fighter that will be headlining an event, doing so on extremely short notice, but I really do like the stylistic matchup. I like Hermansson versus Vettori. I like the grappling. I think this could be a really interesting battle to see who can get the dominant position, who can get who down. Like a really advanced version of Gina Mazany or Abdelaziz, who can get the takedown and implement their game. Because both these guys are submission guys who can pop submissions out of nowhere. So that's fun. But there's a big issue I have with this, is that the UFC pulled out Holland because he has COVID to fight again in 15 days after his positive test. Like this isn't a, we're going to book him a long way out. He's fighting Jacare on the year-end pay-per-view card. That's how they did the little switcheroo thing. So this is a guy who will have to be training with COVID, training with people, doing fight week, cutting weight, doing everything he has to do, only bonus he's got COVID. And I don't understand how this is reasonable, smart, sane, or anything. It doesn't make sense.
Are they just assuming that because Jacare's already had COVID?
Yeah. That's seriously.
That's the only, unless those two fight in a bubble
in like a sauna or something. Yeah,
somewhere off site. I don't know what's going on here, but
sauna from Street Fighter, do that. But it doesn't make sense that the UFC is so cavalier about these COVID fights to go, you'll be done in 2 weeks. So we're going to put you up literally 2 weeks plus 1 day after it. Like, this isn't an exaggeration. 15 days after his positive test, he will be fighting. Jacare Souza, buckle up, Chuck. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, see, and like I said, leadership at the top.
Yeah.
If the man in charge has these feelings toward the pandemic, I don't expect the organization to respect it much at all. So, all right, fellas. So let's see if is there anything on this card you want to highlight, or just the card overall? Is it moving your needle?
Oh, I mean, give me Ilia Topuria versus Damon Jackson.
Funny, that's the
one. My goodness! Like two of the top submission specialists in the UFC right now that are like within a weight class of each other. I can't wait for that. Like that one should be, I mean, it'll be a mediocre kickboxing match now that I've said these things, but it has the potential to be a sensational grappling match. They're both opportunistic, but positionally aware. I mean, it should be an exciting grappling match. That's what I'm, knock on wood. I like that fight a lot.
All right, Jay, what's moving you on this?
There's something that's sticking out to me. It isn't a particular fight that's going to be really good. It's what the UFC has been doing to Luis Smolka and Jose Alberto Quinones, in that these two were supposed to fight on a main card a while back. This was a pretty important fight. This is a potential to be a co-main event fight. This is what they were planning for a couple weeks ago on a really gnarly, there's the Dos Santos Felder card, I think. I can't remember exactly which event, but it was this is the co-main event fight. Okay, I can see that. Luis Smolka is really exciting. Remember his Tim Elliott fight? Very radically exciting, Scramble City. And Quinones may be able to bring that out of him. They are now the first fight on the card. So it feels to me like somebody is being punished for something, for pulling out of the fight, for forcing to reschedule, for a fight to be repositioned from a top build matchup to the literal card opener. Doesn't feel like an accident. That feels like who did you tick off? Who did you say who were you rude to somebody when you did? Were you rude to a media person? Did you not give the proper notice? Because this is the curtain jerker, and this is a fight that, okay, I can see it not being a top fight, but it actually has the potential for some good violence, and it is the first fight of the night. And it just feels odd to me how a fight that was recently scheduled as a big main card fight is being slotted to the bottom of a subpar fight night card.
Yeah, good point there. I'll just go ahead and highlight what should be a pretty bad fight. John Vellante.
Oh, fight of the year, baby.
Wow. I mean, it is what it is. Like, this is a heavyweight fight. I think we're gonna have to revisit our conversation about heavyweight MMA with this one. It's not high up on the card, at least this time, but still should be a sloppy, not very entertaining affair. Wow, that nothing else.
The UFC has been reorganizing fight cards frequently lately. This is something I've been finding a lot. We have a press release, or this happened last week. We received the press release, the official press release of the event itself. Here's the lineup. Here we go. And then the next day, it was changed when Dana did his, if you don't know, now you know, blah, blah, blah. This is all these fights. The order was changed. On fight day, the order was changed again to something different than the first two times. So don't be surprised if John Vellante versus Jake Collier, all of 500 plus pounds, by the way, this will break the 500 pound mark, will be high up on the main card. That's my prediction. That's my lock of the week, guys.
It's almost insulting that the Sherdog Fight Finder photo of Collier is from when he was a middleweight.
I left it there on purpose.
Just looking chiseled as hell. Like,
I reviewed him and Vellante's because Vellante's cut. I think that's from his Strikeforce days, but that's because Vellante is Vellante. That was kind of a strategic move there.
Well, fellas, I think we're gonna wrap it up on this one. We didn't acknowledge the Thanksgiving holiday on our last show, so we might as well do it now. $1 late in a day. No, $1 short in a day late. Yeah, there's the phrase. Man, I'm sleepy. Anyway, so fellas, what are you thankful for in MMA this year?
This might sound strange because I've been dumping on the UFC all night. The stupid decision, short-sightedness, and whatever. And let me finish to explain my point, because it will make sense, I assure you. I am thankful the UFC is in operations this year because Zuffa, and I should say Zuffa, not necessarily just the UFC. Zuffa has put on 40 events this year so far. There'll be a couple more, but Zuffa includes the 30 UFC cards since the pandemic hit. And they came back in May. So 30 events for the UFC and 10 for the Contender Series. So that's 40 events that we've had for Zuffa Productions. There have been 34 for Bellator, LFA, Invicta, and Ryzen put together. So there have been more shows for the UFC and Contender Series than all the other major promotions out there running events, because I'm not counting One Championship as a major promotion because they are tape delaying events. I'll save that for another day. If the UFC weren't running right now, I probably wouldn't be here talking about these fights with you guys. And I don't mean that just from a literal not being able to talk about UFC Fight Night 199 or whatever. I mean, fight coverage and fight media took a big hit because events just weren't running for a long time. Friends of ours all lost their positions in various outlets. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Sherdog and to our boss, Mike Ridley, for keeping our ship running very smoothly in this nightmarish time. But I do have to give credit to the UFC itself, because these 30 UFC cards have been the lifeblood of the event coverage that we need to stay basically in operation. So not in terms of company shilling, but just in terms of dollars and cents, MMA media is I'm grateful that these events are still running. So there we go.
Fine words there from Jay Zuffa Petri. Ben, what are you thankful for this year in MMA?
I mean, I can't help but ride on Jay's coattails because he said so many of the things that I wanted to say. It is possible for me to be conflicted and ambivalent and individually critical about some of the things that the UFC has done this year, while still being grateful for the efforts that they're doing to keep the sport going. I mean, if not for the UFC, I mean, Jay already gave the numbers, and that includes PFL too.
I didn't want to talk about them because they have a big goose egg.
Yeah, but hey, add it in. It doesn't change the numbers.
Yep.
The sport would basically be in an ice age right now. And nothing that I have said this year about individual mistakes, questionable reactions to fight cancellations should be construed as, wishing the UFC would fail or wishing ill on the organization itself or its fighters. I'm very fortunate to have a job that allows me to work from home in as much isolation as my fragile psyche can stand. And that's because we still have a sport. And that is due, at least in large part, to the efforts of the biggest promotion on the planet. And, this time next week, I will be right back to like shitting on 3/4 of the things that they do and say. But, don't get it confused. Like I'm not an ant at the picnic here. I I am glad in general for the things that they're doing to allow fighters to keep making money, to allow their infrastructure, the people that work for them and make money in the MMA industry to continue to live.
Well, if this were a picnic, I would be the ant.
Yes,
you beat me to it.
but yeah, I can't disagree with what you guys are saying. Like it is possible to criticize the UFC for clear blunders, clear promotional malpractice, and so many things that they do wrong. But we can still commend them for at least attempting to keep the sport afloat, even if it is for their own financial purposes and not necessarily benevolent. But hey, it's kept us all in the loop. So we've been working like for me. I mean, I'm someone who got laid off from SureDog before all this started. Like December, I was gone from SureDog and kind of on the outs of MMA media after a couple years in putting in some real work. So for the sport to be in the condition that it's in now, with the world in the condition that it's in now, and somehow I've weaseled my way back into garnishing some sort of paycheck from this. And still, I mean, we don't get any money for this on my channel. We'd be lucky if we get 200 people to watch this show. But the fact is I get to have this hour and a half or so it takes for us to record, to talk with my friends about something that we all three love, and, just have a good time and kind of get our thoughts out and out there for the world, for whoever wants to listen. So I'm very thankful for, for like the friendships it's forged with you guys, with, Jason and Kristen and Matt Hunter and all, Andreas and all the people that I consider my friends and colleagues in this. So we've been working, we've been at it, and yeah, I'm thankful for it. So yeah, just wear your mask.
And whatever else we may say about the UFC, at least Ali Abdelaziz is not paying their jobbers directly out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I am thankful of that. Yeah. And I am thankful also for the 200 or so people that are watching this. Shout outs to our pals Jimbo and Europe One and Purple Storm and Frankie McEdgar and all the team that has brought us here to this wonderful point.
Yeah. One last thing. I'm still looking at these pictures of Vellante versus Collier, and if this wasn't a fight, this would be like a bad Tinder date. Because both these motherfuckers are like 70 pounds heavier than they are in these pictures. I'm sorry.
No, please don't be.
Oh, it's great.
This is the level of maturity I want on this show.
It's beautiful. I'm so happy.
All right, so I think that's probably an appropriate place to end it. So just don't get catfished, people. That's the main point of all this. Now, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. You can find Jay and Ben's work on SureDog.com. You can check out my work on MMA On Point the body lock and karate combat if they actually post some of the stuff. And I wrote a lot of stuff. I've done a bunch of videos and everything. They ain't posting nothing. I don't know what's going on over there. Maybe I'll post it on this channel. Maybe that's what I'll start doing, because I've been, I didn't up my video editing skills for a reason. But anyway, here we go. So, follow us on Twitter. You see the handles below, and stay beautiful, stay positive, don't get catfish, wear a mask, and always stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.